How did you get there? I don't know. Where do you live? I don't know. There are cuts on your arms. Where are they from? Again, I don't know. Why are you naked? Well, I guess someone took my clothes. Who? I told you, I don't know. That feeling when your brain just can't remember something. It's there in your brain, but it's not clear. It's cloudy, it's fragmented, it's so frustrating. Is your brain imagining something? Reinventing something? Or is your brain trying to forget something? Either way, it's cloudy, it's fragmented, and it's frustrating. Well, that's memory for you. Or is it? Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, what's that I hear? I think it's the shout out music. Alright, so shout outs to Melanie Gudjo. Melanie, your message meant a lot to me. Thank you so much. Fiona D. Prentice, thank you for being wonderful. Christy Lynn, your message really made me smile. Thank you so much. Heather Kelty, I'll make a promise with you, Heather, I won't waver on storytelling. Brenda White Brockway, hey Brenda, thank you so much for getting in touch with a really gorgeous message. Jessica Lee Cruck, thanks for the support. Thank you so much. And lastly, Debbie Harvey. Thanks, Debbie. Your message, it was lovely. Right, everyone, before we start, this story is a tricky beast. It's a tricky, slippery, dicky kind of but it's a bit of a mess, this story. Now, as I've researched it, I've tried my very best to understand it. And I'm not sure that I fully quite understand it yet. And you'll know from, if you've been listening for a while, you'll know that what I like to do is present you a story where I go, this is everything that I've kind of learned about it, and this is my way of understanding it in the world. And there's lots in this story that I go, yeah, that's absolutely fine. There's still a lot of question marks for me. But I thought that might be quite an interesting way to take this wee short stories episode, where I was like, maybe I'll just present a story that actually we could have a kind of conversation about. We could have, because there is a lot of conversation about this story. It really grabbed me because the headline of it, the kind of main part of it, is so interesting. And then there's lots of things underneath it that just need a little bit more examination. So, are you ready for the story of Benjamin Kyle? Okay, let's go. Right, so it's August 31st and it's Richmond Hill in Georgia, America. And a Burger King employee starts her day, so her shift starts at 4:30, and one of her jobs is to empty out some of the containers from the night before. So she's emptying out the containers. She goes to the bins at the back of the Burger King, and lying amongst the bins, she finds something she was truly not expecting. It's a body. It's the body of a man in his 50s. Is he dead? No. The man is alive. She can see that he's breathing. Right, so at first she thinks he just looks like he's someone who's homeless. He's a homeless man. And he's looking for somewhere to shelter, and he's just chosen the bins. Or she's also looking at him and thinking, well, maybe he's just, someone who's been on a big night out and he's just accidentally fallen here. He's just, been so out of his face that he's just sort of fallen down and found somewhere to be. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to wake up in odd places. I'm pretty sure a lot of you will have woken up in odd places in your life. I know that I certainly have. I've most certainly had that experience in my life. This male that she's found has blood all over his skull. He has bite marks on his body. He's completely naked, and his eyes are seeping with pus. So she immediately calls police, of course, as you would. And she says, I don't know who this is, but it looks like someone has tried to kill him. An ambulance arrives and he's taken to a hospital in Savannah. So the head wounds are treated. The bites on his body, they discover, are from rats, and they start to get treated. And the reason that there's pus coming from his eyes is because he has really bad cataracts that have never been dealt with. Now here's the thing. He has nothing on him to identify himself. Not one thing. Not a single identity document. So when he gets to the hospital, they have no way to record him because they can't find anything on him that says who he is. So they record him as Burger King Doe. It's a bit tragic. The reason they do that is because they already have a John Doe in the hospital that night who'd been brought in, and they're like, oh well, you know what? Shit, we can't have two John Does. Let's have one John Doe, and we'll have one. We'll just call him Burger King Doe. I mean, I feel like if you'd spent 30 more seconds, you could have come up with something slightly more creative than that. But okay, you know what? I guess in a hospital, you don't have time. There's no time. You just have to name the beast. You just name the beast. Get on with it. Okay, so he's called Burger King Doe. And what they do is they take these two letters, B and K, from Burger King, and they give him the name Benjamin Kyle, because of course they had to start filling out forms. This man's appeared, not a single clue who he is, no way to connect him to anything, so they call him Benjamin Kyle. So he's treated for his injuries, and when he's awake fully, police and hospital staff, they need to answer the big burning question. Who are you? Benjamin's response, I don't know. Benjamin has no idea who he is. No idea what age he is. Doesn't know if he has a family. Doesn't know where he lives. And he doesn't know how he ended up in the bins at Burger King. No clue whatsoever. So lots of tests are done on Benjamin in the hospital. He meets with lots of psychiatrists and they diagnose Benjamin with amnesia. So he's kept in hospital for a while. During this time, he starts to go through some really angry outbursts. He starts to really shout at nurses and doctors sometimes. Probably just a part of the frustration, the anger. I can't imagine what that would be like to wake up and just not know anything about yourself, to have no identity. So sometimes these outbursts get really, really out of control in the hospital, and it ends with him actually being put on antipsychotic medication. And after another diagnosis, another doctor steps in, and he's diagnosed with not only amnesia, but also schizophrenia. So, amnesia, schizophrenia. What happens to Benjamin? Well, it takes months for his injuries to heal and for the cataracts to be removed from his eyes. And after a really long time in hospital, he looks at himself for the first time in the mirror and he says, I was expecting someone in their 30s, not someone in their 50s. So he's in this place of complete confusion. He has no idea who he is at this moment, not a single clue. Without any identification or a social security number, Benjamin gets moved around from hospital to hospital, and I think, to be frank, if I'm really honest about it, I just think no one really knew what to do with him at this point. Because, his injuries had kind of healed, and yes, there were some mental disorders, but I don't think anyone really knew at this point where was the best place to put him. So they just kept shoving him from hospital to hospital, and he would stay somewhere for a week, and then, you're being transferred, and he would move on to somewhere else, and yeah, there were no missing persons reports matching the description of Benjamin in the area. So police decide, well, an investigation, it's not really necessary. There's no crime scene here, really. Yes, the guy's got amnesia, but where is the missing persons report? Where is there that? It doesn't exist. I mean, yeah, police will agree. He's been attacked, and he's really massive head wounds. But if he can't remember anything at all, then they're thinking, well, where the fuck does an investigation begin? A mystery. So the press, they get wind of Benjamin's story, and he becomes known as the man with no name, the mystery. Who is he? Who is this man? And so he starts to appear on local news programmes. And the story kind of always stays the same. In any interview that he does and anything that he talks about on TV, it always goes the same. The narrative is just the exact same all the time. It starts with, hey, so you were found behind a dumpster at a Burger King. How did you get there? I don't know. What do you think your name might be? I don't know. Do you think there are people looking for you? I couldn't say. And on, and on, and on. Honestly, it gets repetitive. I'm not going to lie. Looking at a lot of this, I read a lot of things, I watched some things, and I listened to some different material on it. It's just the same questions over and over again, because nobody's really able to get a handle on this. No one can really know. I mean, and I get that. The guy's got amnesia. How many questions can you actually ask? Do you know what I mean? You can't ask that many questions. But it's just the same questions on a loop over and over and over. He must have been like, fucking, are you kidding me? I need to answer this again. Anyway, he then ends up, through the press attention, being on Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil. I know some people love Dr. Phil and some people hate Dr. Phil. I quite like him. I think he's fun. The Burke Ramsay interview is great. I mean, it's not great because, Burke doesn't really give away much. But I think Dr. Phil's really good during it. Is Dr. Phil a real doctor? Or is he like a fake doctor? I'm not sure. I bet I've got lots of posts that comes to me addressed to Lord Barry Henderson, because sometimes, you know how like when you go onto something like Amazon or you go into like eBay and it gives you the wee drop down box and it's like Mr., Mrs., Ms., Miss and all that sort of stuff. I quite like to just sometimes click Lord. I've got a couple of store cards that are just Lord Barry Henderson, because I feel like, who's ever going to call you out on that? If I'm going to be in a supermarket, right, and I'm going to hand over my points card when I'm like buying my shopping, I think anyone's ever going to look at that and be like, you're not a lord? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think that you are. Yeah. But I don't know if Dr. Phil is a real doctor, or if he too, like me, has just done the wee drop down box and thought, here, I'm just going to call myself a doctor. That'll be brilliant. And everyone will believe that I am one. So on the Dr. Phil episode, it's a really intensive. They get Benjamin on it, and there are photo fits that they take. They do this whole thing where they like imagine what he looked like when he was 18, when he was 30, when he was 35, right up to the age that he is now. And it's really, really good. The whole episode is about him. And Dr. Phil manages to get out of him, like, do you remember anything? And he starts to talk a little bit about Indiana, and he's like, I've sort of got this memory of Indiana. I'm not quite sure if I just visited it or if I lived there. Not quite sure. So this episode goes out and there's a little bit of information, and now people are seeing Benjamin in the public. Does this help? No, not really. Despite 4 million people watching it, and his face being really widely publicised, nobody comes forward to say, I know who that man is. So it starts to escalate, and Benjamin is the first person, the very first person in the USA to ever be put on a missing persons list when he's actually there, when he's actually contactable. He's the first person to ever be put on that list, in amongst all those really tragic teenagers that have just disappeared on their way to school, or like people in their 40s and 50s who were working in a dental surgery who just never made it home one night. He's right in there. He's right in there as a missing person. But he's missing in the sense that he's here. Just who's missing him? Who is actually missing Benjamin? It's hard to know what Benjamin's feeling during all of this and the big kind of press explosion about it, because in every interview he just doesn't give away much. He doesn't say much. He'll talk a little bit and he'll say the odd thing here and there. He answers questions quite well, but he kind of never really gives anything away that gives you any proper sense of him. The only moment I could find with Benjamin, after a lot of looking, is a moment where he gave an interview to a local news reporter and he says, "It's pretty horrible to think that you are not important enough to be looked for." He says, "Isn't there someone in my last life who thinks that they might want to try and take the time to find me? Apparently not." And he says, this is not a nice existence. So now it goes up a level. The FBI get involved. They say, right, we're going to solve this. We will find out who he is. That all sounds really promising. That would be great if it happens, but they don't. After a few months, they kind of give up. I got the feeling when I was reading all through all this stuff, I was like, I just don't think this was actually... I think the FBI were making a statement of, right, we're going to do something about this, we're going to find it, but I just don't think it was high on their priority list. If I'm honest, I just think that's what it is. For 3 years, Benjamin lived on the streets. He lived in random fields that he could find, and he's not got one single bit of money in the world. Right, so why wasn't he in a homeless shelter? That was my first question. I was like, well, if he's living in the streets, why the fuck is he not in a homeless shelter? Well, he doesn't have a social security number. This is this is incredible to me. The story has been big. The story has been on Dr. Phil. I'll tell you what Benjamin does have. He has a Twitter account in his name run by someone else. He's got a Wikipedia page. He's got a discussion thread on Reddit. But he's living on the streets. I mean, it's just fucking... that, to me, is just ridiculous. So some good person does something. I hope that one day I could do this for someone, or you could do this for someone, or any of us could. They start a petition to the US government to get Benjamin a new social security number. So they need like 100,000 signatures, and the US government at that point would have to give him a new social security number, but it doesn't work. They fall short in the end. They end up with only like 87,000. I think that was what I read. 87,000. So Benjamin is still living in the streets. I'm in a news team decide to catch up with Benjamin just to, keep on top of the story, see what's going on. He says, "Some days I wish that when they'd found me in the dumpster at Burger King, I just hadn't woken up." So now a journalist comes along who is really interested in Benjamin's story, and he starts interviewing Benjamin on the streets. And he's decided, do you know what? This journalist he's had enough of this shit. He's like, I've had enough of this. Let's do a plea. Let's do something where we can actually try and help this guy. So he puts a video together where he gets Benjamin to talk to camera about his struggle, about the fact that he's completely anonymous. He has no social security number. He apparently just doesn't exist in the world. And by now, plenty of people online are really fucked off with the fact that nothing, absolutely nothing, is being done. So they go to government officials and they explain the story. They plead with them to help them work out who is this man who doesn't know who he is. And actually, these pleas are heard. So Benjamin is given a job as a kitchen porter. I mean, that's massive, right? That's absolutely huge, because up until now, Benjamin could not do anything because, again, he didn't have the social security number. Ugh. But now he's on the payroll somewhere with a social security number because one really good hearted politician said, no way. This man cannot live on the streets with no identity. Give him a job, social security number or not. We will sort that out later. Just get him working at the moment and we'll sort this out. So, time moves on. Benjamin continues to work the same job that he's working. In that time, has anyone come forward looking for Benjamin? No. Is there anyone really still interested in Benjamin's story? Yes, there is. 10 years on. 10 full fucking years on from when Benjamin was found in the Burger King bins. A genealogist called Colleen Fitzpatricks learns of Benjamin's story and she is really interested. Colleen normally works with adopted children, and what she'll do is she'll be able to work out who their actual parent was. So that's her kind of thing. That's her skill. She examines Benjamin. She takes blood. She looks at his scars. She examines him thoroughly for any bit of DNA that she can find. She works his case for 2.5 years. She is determined that she is going to find his family. Now, lo and behold, she finds a family in Indiana where Benjamin had previously mentioned, who have the same DNA as Benjamin. So, great news. She's found 3 males, 3 brothers who share the same DNA as Benjamin. Now, he's told about them, and, well, he doesn't remember them, of course. And when they ask these 3 brothers, they say, we last saw him in 1978. He left Indiana to go travelling, and he never came back. We just thought he was dead. So, what does Benjamin do? Well, I wish to God it was clear. One day, he says, I'm so excited to go and to meet my brothers. And then the next, he says, I actually think I'll just stay here in Georgia. He says, I look forward to meeting them at one day, but just not now. Just not right now, because I'm going to be a stranger to them. And I would rather just stay here in my life. Okay. That gives me pause for thought because I just think, actually, okay, I can see it from all perspectives. I can see it from the perspective of, if you can't remember that you had 3 brothers who lived in Indiana, going back to them must be daunting. So maybe, you choose to stay where you are. But the other bit of me goes, well, you've also been on this long, long search to discover any kind of identity, and now it's being given to you, and you don't really want to take the opportunity up. So that's odd. Throughout this process, it's discovered that Benjamin's real name is William Powell. So he's not Benjamin Kyles. He's not Benjamin Kyles BK. Now you'll remember that I said in the beginning, this story is tricky. It is a twisty and turny one. It's definitely got something about it. And I didn't think, when I looked at this story first, I didn't think it has anything about it. I thought it was just as it was. And then I realised, actually no, you just keep seeing the same things about the story all the time. You just keep seeing the glossy version. If you type Benjamin Kyle into Google, what you will be given is the miracle story of the man who was found in the bins at Burger King and reunited with his family years later, because it's become this kind of like myth in a way that's like, let's tell this story. And actually there's a lot of things in the story that are quite inconsistent and not really that true. For me, why was Benjamin in no rush to reconnect? That's a worry. There were 4 million people who watched Dr. Phil and nobody came forward at that point. It took years for anyone to come forward. Staff who were working on the day that he was found in that Burger King came forward years later to say he wasn't found in the state that it was initially described. Police had very little interest in this story. And is that because they knew that actually this wasn't really worth investigating? And I'll go back to just saying, you see with this story the same narrative over and over and over again. It's all about the success of him reconnecting with his family. But the truth is, he hasn't actually reconnected with his family. He's met with them, but he doesn't recognise them. He doesn't know them. So, if you went down the rabbit hole of looking into Benjamin Kyle, you would be led to believe the entire thing was a hoax. But for me, there's no solid proof that it's a hoax. And why would it be a hoax? I mean, the best that I can come up with is that maybe he was homeless, and maybe this was the best way out. I can't come up with any better. The 3 brothers who said, "Oh yeah, that's our brother. We recognise him," through all that DNA stuff. They're not to be found anywhere. There are so many holes and inconsistencies in this story. And if you have a thought and you have a theory, please let me know what it is, because I never like to ever present a story where I haven't reached a conclusion. But I think I've actually happened upon a story where I don't think there's ever going to be a conclusion. And I think that's my problem. I've struggled a lot with how to tell this story. Right, I'm just going to be really honest with you here. I'm just going to let you into this. When I started looking at this one, I was really into it. I was like, oh my god, this fucking guy's been through a terrible situation. Cannot believe this. This is absolutely shocking. And then as I watched him be interviewed, I started to get a bit of an odd feeling, right? From nowhere. Just has to get a bit of an odd, like, no, I don't know. Something's not sitting right with me. Facts aren't adding up. Things don't seem right to me here. And then I went down that fucking internet rabbit hole that you go down, where I was like, okay, let's just check out what other people are saying about him. And then I entered a world where everyone was like, he's a liar. He's a liar. This has all been a fraud. And I read all that and then I was like, yeah, but why? Why is it? Why would you do that? I don't understand. And so now I'm back and forth. And I realise I get that a lot of people, I do it. I come to podcasts to listen to them because sometimes I want a story that's got a great beginning, middle and end. And I can be left with a sense of satisfaction at the end where I go, that person, yeah, they got what was coming to them. Or I've finally got the answer. Or there was a confession. I genuinely don't know with Benjamin Kyle that there's ever really going to be an answer about whether or not actually he ever had amnesia, or whether or not the whole entire thing was a hoax. But for me, that's still what makes it an extraordinary story, because I can't answer that question. That's what makes it interesting. Okay, so ends the story of Benjamin Kyle. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that. I know it's not my usual kind of, I'm just going to take you to a story and take you through it and wrap it up nicely and give you the kind of end package. But, yeah, fuck it, it's a part of my process. Do you know what I mean? It's a part of what I need to go through with stories sometimes where I feel the frustration, and I hope that you also... No, I don't want you to feel frustrated. I don't want you to feel frustrated. Of course I don't want that. But I also want you to know that, yeah, sometimes I love to look at a story where I'm like, what the actual fuck can somebody just give me an answer to this? And sometimes there just aren't answers. There just aren't answers. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the story is interesting. If you want to get in touch, you can. Facebook, join the Facebook group. It's a wonderful place to be. I'm on Twitter, Extra Stories. I do this all the time. At Extra Stories Pod. Instagram. I'm on Patreon if you want to donate to the podcast. That would be really nice of you. Keep getting in touch. Keep talking to me. I really love it when you send stories. I really love it when you send me things. It's great. Alright, until the weekend. Okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.
My worst story, right, is, I'll just tell you this really quickly. My worst story is back in my student days. I lived in like a student flat with like a whole load of other. There was five of us that lived in the flat. And we'd gone out to a club one night, me and one of my friends, and you know the shots aftershock that you can get in a bar. So at the time there was just blue aftershock. Aftershock was just like the, this like this blue shot you could have, and then they brought out red aftershock. And my friend said to me, "Do you know what's a great idea? If you mix the two together, you can make purple aftershock." I was like, "Oh, great! That sounds absolutely brilliant." So went out, had millions of purple aftershock. The next thing you know, I literally woke up in what in Scotland I would call the close, which is basically like if you live in a block of flats, like once you're inside the stairwell, essentially. So just like woke up in the stairwell. And the way that I'd got there is I couldn't find my keys, so I'd rung every single buzzer in the block of 20 flats at 4 in the morning until eventually someone let me in. And I got halfway up the stairs because my flat was on the top floor. I got halfway up and I had food with me. I had this sort of takeaway that I got from a late night fast food place. And when my flatmate came out to see what the hell all the noise was, because I was ringing all the buzzers, I was like banging the door trying to get in, I was sitting in the stairwell crying because the takeaway place had given me the wrong type of sauce. Now, I have no memory of this. The only thing I can remember is waking up the next morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. People are going to work and I'm lying there asleep and I'm covered. I had covered the whole entire stairs in chips and sauce. It was just food everywhere. The next day, I had to go around all of the neighbours and apologise. I hand wrote each of them. Oh, it's so bad. I hand wrote each of them an apology. "Dear neighbour, flat 03, I am so sorry for my behaviour last night." That happened to me like a million years ago, but I never lived that down. I never lived down in my life the fact that I never quite ever made it into my flat, but instead just slept in the stairs of my flat with food all over the place, crying because I didn't get the right sauce from the takeaway shop. The Burger King worker is...
Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.